Right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the area committee. We've got some new people here. My name's Rosamund Carroll, I'm the chairman of this committee. We'll go to my right.
I'm Joanne Eccles, a committee administrator at Pendle Council.
Mike Goldthorpe, Indian Cotswold councillor.
Jennifer Purcell, Craven Cotswold councillor.
Mandarin Avery Town Council.
Paul Maskell, Kelbrook and South Parish Council.
Tom Whip, councillor for Banner's Ward.
David Whip, I'm councillor representing Indian Cotswold.
Chris Church, also councillor Barnell's Ward.
David Walker, Environmental Services Manager and Area Coordinator for West Craven.
Okay, I'll get started. Item 1 of any declarations of interest. Nope. Item 2 is any members of the public who have a question which is not on this agenda.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, could you please state your name?
Yeah, my name is Tina. Do you want me to stand up?
Or whatever you're comfortable with.
Oh, I'll just sit down. Yeah, there's rumours that Transdev, whoever the bus services around here, may be putting buses in the evenings relating to some incidents with children causing problems. And I wanted to raise my question because for people like me that don't drive, these is completely cut off and our lifeline, taken away really, because the buses are very expensive anyway, and obviously getting taxis is not sustainable on a regular basis. So that was my question I wanted to raise, or my concern.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Whip, you want to come in?
Yes, if I may, Chairman. As you're aware, I asked for an item on the agenda for this meeting so that we could pick this issue up. Unfortunately, it isn't on the agenda. And I understand that it's going to be discussed when we get to the January meeting. But it's regrettable, unless we've got somebody undercover, we don't have any police officers in attendance, I'll say could pick it up. But I do think it's an issue that we should discuss under item 4 because of the antisocial behaviour, which is bad enough with attacking buses, but in both Avey and Barnoldswick, the antisocial behaviour is pretty rife. So I wonder if we could pick this issue when we get on to item 4 and have a full discussion.
Yeah, sure. Okay, is there any other members of the public here with a question you want to ask which is not on the agenda? No? Okay.
Yes, I'd like to ask a question that might not be on the agenda.
If you could just state your name for the record.
Yes, Mr. Wadsworth. I live at Greats Wood Close in Barnsley.
Okay.
And it's really, I don't know if it is on the agenda, but it's about the roadworks in the development. They've not been tarmacked. We've been there for 3 years. Come December, some people have been there longer, and in those 3 years, very little, if anything, has been done. And if it has, it's been corrected. So my question will be, we're at a stage now, I think, where many people would probably want this work to get done, but have very little confidence in the original developer, Berkeley de Vere, in actually doing that. And so my question will be, is the Town Council in a position to take over that work?
Could you just state what for the record where that work is?
Greatswood Close. Well, Rates Hill and Greatswood Close.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor Whip.
Chairman, the residents on Rates Hill and Rateswood Close have got a petition which I'm not sure whether it's been presented tonight. No, they're looking puzzled. I sent an email, an electronic copy of it, to Mr. Watson and alerted him to the fact fact that residents will be turning up to question the council tonight. I wonder whether we've briefed anybody.
No.
No. Chairman, this is an issue that we've raised repeatedly. Councillor Conway, myself, and other representatives complaining not only about the unfinished state of the road, but also the way in which the development has dug into Longing Lane, and that's not been reinstated. If you remember, this has been subject to discussion for many months now. We did ask as a committee that the council, who are the highway authority, who would hold a bond for uncompleted roadworks. We asked them to call the bond in and get on with that work. And several months later, we're still waiting. I had hoped that there might be an update from officers of Pendle Council reporting where they were at in terms of the breach of condition notices and the unfinished roadworks, which is a county council issue. Could I suggest that we have it on the agenda for the next meeting, which is in January, and in the meantime, if Mr Watson or other officers can update us on where we're at, or not.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, I've been aware of this as well. I've also reported it to LCC. I have a meeting on the 20th of December with Highways Department, and I will bring it up with them as well as to what's going on with this, and see if we can get something sorted out ASAP. It's not fair on the residents when these roads aren't made up. So, like I said, it's unfair, and as I said, I will fetch this up on the 20th of December at this meeting with the LCC Highway people.
Am I allowed to respond, or...?
No, Fred, no. But you can be assured that all councils are looking into it to see if we can resolve this issue.
Yes, I think we've been more than patient as residents.
Yeah,
And I think we've been ridden over roughshod by the developer, who seems to just drag their feet and delay. And so this is a position we find ourselves at.
It will get discussed more at the next meeting in January, because they'll have a report to come to us to see what stage we're up and where we've got with the developers.
Right.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move on to item 3, minutes of the last meeting. No, thank you. Item 4, police and community issues. We've got no police coming tonight.
Coming on the police and looking at this antisocial behaviour that's going around West Craven. I've been inundated with residents in the town with reviews. I've been on to the police commissioner for the lack of police in the area. I do believe now we have spoken with him, the new police officer that's been helping out. But this antisocial behaviour in the town has got rife. Now, I don't want to say too much because, like I said, these TV machines go on Facebook and everything else, but there is a lot of things going on and being sorted out. I mean, councillors cannot be accountable for these youths that are doing all this antisocial behaviour. I mean, we've got to have them knocking the so-called safety railings down at Gisborne Road. I am sick of Lancashire County Council not doing the job in the Highways Department. 12 months to this day, they have not replaced those railings. I have had emails for them to come out and keep putting the railings back to make them safe because the children are knocking them down. I have been told today by an email by Lancashire County Highways that the railings are going to start being replaced this week, hopefully, and then finished off next week. I've also mentioned about the Raynor Road ones being in the same state, but this antisocial behaviour, I don't know what we can do, the police can do, but I have been on to the police commissioner, chief inspectors, you name it, but it is very unfair for these residents with this antisocial behaviour. And I do feel we should write to the police commissioner and ask him, there is high time that we had some better policing in West Craven, because at the moment it is appalling. I cannot fault the officers that are doing the job now. I mean, they're doing the best. They can't do any more than what they can do. At least you do think they are above the police. But that's my bit on this antisocial behaviour. I am on with it.
Okay, councillor.
Thank you, Chairman. I think, although the issue of antisocial behaviour is something that is live, it's perhaps a little unfair to lambast the youths with the barriers, the plastic barriers that repeatedly get blown into the road. Sorry, I mean, we've seen it repeatedly where we have highways and the barriers end up in the road, or they end up in the pavement. But we'll be picking from that at a later agenda item. As I say, I do think it's a bit unfair blaming young people for that, because from what I've observed, the wind is more of a culprit than teenagers. The issue of antisocial behaviour, I think, is being made much worse by some businesses, or a business in the town, in Van Olswick, I'm talking here, that is selling inappropriate goods to young children, underage children, and possibly there's various other substances involved as well, which are less legal. So I picked that up with the police, with trading standards, with environmental health, the gamut of agencies, and the issue has been raised at something called a gender panel, which is serious crime, and hopefully something will happen as a consequence of that. Chairman, I do welcome the arrival of PC Gareth Ingham, who has become part of the local neighbourhood policing team and filled a vacancy that has been there for, well, I'm going to say 12, 18 months. That's very welcome, but we now have the princely total of one local policing officer and one policing community support officer covering the whole of Van Olswick, EAD, Kelbrook, Salterforth, Suff and Folbridge, and they are faced with an impossible task. So it's welcome that PC Ingham is now in post, and he was, together with Neil Wallin, investigating some crimes that I reported the other week, and thanks to community intelligence we were able to point them at the culprits in that particular case. But there is far too much going on across the board, which is just not acceptable. It's not acceptable in Van Olswick, it's not acceptable in Earby, and to my mind, what there ought to be is much more youth provision, so that there are positive activities for young people, and there might be a few wolves there that are sort of leading people astray. But if you've got youth provision, then that's something that the sheep, the people who follow, might do something positive rather than be drawn into negative behaviours and negative attitudes. And that comes back to the county council. who have not provided the sort of new facilities and services that historically we've had. And I would suggest that we have a resolution at this meeting to say, Lancashire County Council, we've got all these problems with young people, and could you please put young people's facilities and services in place in order to provide positive activities for them to take part in.
Also comes down to parenting as well.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking about the agencies.
Yeah.
We've been talking about the police, the county council have a role. They are the authority that should be providing youth services, and I know that we write to them accordingly.
Councillor.
Yeah, just to go back what David, Councillor Woods just said, Senior, it's a fortnight ago I was at Lancashire County Council and there was a small seminar there talking about all this sort of problem, and I did mention Barnwell's for the lack of youth. I mean, going back many years, it is David, over 20 odd years, we have problems with youth, but not as bad as this. But we did find something for these youths where to go on, what have you. And I do feel it is a lack of somewhere where for these youths to go. I mean, yes, we can say it's down to parents, but these teenagers and younger generation have nowhere to go really, apart from hanging out on the parks and what have you. If that's somewhere where they can go along and do something, maybe.
Chairman,
Okay.
Chairman, there are places for them to go. We've got New Road Community Centre that had a thriving youth club. We've got the basement at the City Hall in Barnoldswick, which again had a good youth club. The basement at the City Hall in Barnoldswick has been mothballed for the last 2 years, 2.5 years. We're still paying the rent, they've got the heating on full, they're wasting money left, right and centre. So there are places there, they need staffing, and they need people providing the services and facilities, which they could perfectly well do.
Do you want a second?
I wanted to come in.
Yeah.
I think it's entirely unfair to say that this is all down to parenting. You've got families now, both parents are working full time, and you've got, a rural area. The kids can't, with a diminishing transport service, the kids can't get out on their own. The parents can't be driving cars everywhere, and that does end you up with a lot of young people not being able to go to maybe Colne, Burnley, where there is provision, and ending up just having to make do with what they've got. And unfortunately, that might be hanging out with unsavoury people, and that does lead to antisocial behaviour. We did have a very good youth service in Barnoldswick in the basement of the City Hall, and that's just completely gone. It's left a gaping void, and it's about time the County Council actually did something there. So I think it's really unfair to say it's down to parents. It really is. They've got a part to play, but I think for that to be immediate reaction, I think it's wrong. There should be adequate youth provision by the County Council. So I will second the Councillor's motion on that.
I'll just add to that, because when I was at the community centre at the weekends, there's a mission statement inside the community centre, and it says, the Lancashire Youth and Community Service, which is provided by a partnership between the local education authority and voluntary organisations, seeks to enable young people and other members of the community to achieve their full emotional, physical, intellectual and spiritual potential. And to be honest, they're not being provided for. The community centre and how it's run is a very closed in a sense, I think, and it's not welcoming new groups, younger people, things like that, and getting them involved with things. To be honest, there isn't really anything in here besides, I think there's a karate club, we've got no brownies, we've got no guides, scouts, anything like that anymore. There's a youth centre, obviously, I've had for years. And it's a struggle coming up against different organisations from wanting to get involved with that. But if we could get Lancashire County Council to start providing a little bit more, because there's nothing. I need for different funding for things for young people, and that's the one that there's a real lack of more than anything, I think. And I think they're one of the main things we should be focusing on. Just being in, when we were tidying up in the community centre, there was older vulnerable people there, mainly women as well. And it's the same with teenagers every time, near enough smashing the window, banging the doors, shouting outside, and they were terrified. You ring the police, no one comes, you know, for a few hours, by which time you disperse, and it's like, you've got to get the next generation to stop and keep the cycle keep going on. We've got to have things for them to do, and we can say our parents all the time, but it's a bit of everything, I think.
I mean, it's several years ago now since council pulled a rug on youth activities in the neighbourhood, particularly in West Craven. That ain't going to go back, in my estimation. In the short to medium term, I can't see anything coming out of that. Having said that, doesn't mean to say we can't try. But this has happened, not just yesterday, this has happened several years ago, in terms of the cutbacks and then totally walking away from it. I don't believe that was the right decision, but that decision has been taken. I think there are efforts. I mean, it's a difficult one. It's a close, small quantity of people in the activity, and they're going around Barnoswick, Airby and Cornwall doing similar things. It's not just our area that's badly affected by antisocial behaviour, it's all across Lancashire. We have a thriving youth activity and have had for a number of years. In fact, there's waiting lists to get on the teams. There's over 12 youth teams being run in the area. It's football, fine, but they are over subscribed in terms of running the teams. The problem we've got is finding enough volunteers to actually run more. But that's always been there. It's gone from strength to strength. And many of the youngsters that have played in those youth teams are now officially part of the Burnley youth setup as well. And that takes place in Airby. What we do about this small group of children, latchkey children, if you want to put it that way, I don't know. But it's not going to be solved by asking LCC to reinstate a service that they've taken away right across Lancashire. We may be other solutions we can get from LCC, and that might be useful. But I think we've got to be realistic about what we can achieve. But it is bad, there's no doubt about it. And there are signs that it's been tackled in different ways. But there isn't the shortage of guides and scouts is absolutely right. But that relied on one superb woman who can't put the time into it because of ill health now. And we all know who that is, that's Doris Hill. And neither can they find volunteers to do this. So we have a problem, we need to look at ways of solving it. But having made the decision to withdraw from that type of youth support, I would think it would be very unlikely you get a positive response if it's solely aimed at setting up youth clubs again. I think we should try and create a dialogue with LCC to see if there are other areas that we can get involvement with or support from to the various organisations we've already got in place. But by all means, let's have a go.
Okay.
Gentlemen, and I want to bring in the problems on the buses as well, but Lancashire County Council, despite having scrapped universal youth provision, youth clubs and the until a couple of years ago, there was a significant amount of work done on what they call targeted interventions, and that's where they would work with teenagers who were problematic and liable to create more difficulties, and they worked with those on a targeted basis to try and change the behaviours and attitudes that were there. So that appears to have gone, but there's no reason why that cannot happen again. If we're talking about there not being the funding available to provide for young people, I think we need to take into account the costs on the other side of the equation, because the cost of not having adequate provision outweighs the cost of having it. If we can head off all the difficulties, if we can head off the problems, if we can head off people getting into bother, and hopefully not, but head off people getting into the courts, then we save a heck of a lot of money, and we save a lot of community concern and community costs, because that's all being addressed. And at the moment, nothing's being addressed. We've got buildings that are standing empty, that stood empty now for in excess of 2 years, all costing money, and yet not being put to use. It just not makes sense. And coming back to the buses, which is a point that Tina was raising at the beginning of the meeting, it's clear the nature of the problems is across many communities. So, it isn't necessarily kids in Barnoldswick causing problems in Barnoldswick, or kids in Erie causing problems in Erie. The buses are being used for youngsters to come from one place and end up in another. And I've witnessed some groups that seem to have, and I'm not targeting Colne, but there were some Colne young people involved with the thing. So it's coming from different places, and it is more widespread. It's not just homegrown talent that's causing problems. So we really do need we need that multidisciplinary approach that will actually do this. And the County Council has set up a team that is moving from place to place, and that is new, but there isn't enough of it, and that activity, that service is spread so thinly that really it's struggling to make any impact. But there are things that can be done. I don't accept that we should just give up the ghost because nothing is going to happen. If we take that attitude at the beginning, of course nothing ever will.
Chairman, I haven't said that.
No, none of us have said that.
Nobody in this room has said that. What we said was, and what I said was, that there are other areas, exactly what you just mentioned, that we should be looking at for LCC to do something about it. We certainly haven't given up the ghost, so let's just be sensible about what we're saying. We're going to do something about it. We're going to try and get some involvement. We will try and get some action in terms of West Craven, because that's all we're interested in at the moment.
Madam Chairman, everybody around this table have got the same interest at heart. We want to solve this problem. I can go back many years, same as Councillor Wick can, and you've got to try your best with these youths and speak with them. invite them, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, we are not downing anybody here at all. We are all here to solve this problem, whether it be in West Craven, Pendle, it's right. Let us councillors, it doesn't matter what political party you're from, you work together. Because if you're not going to work together and you start working against it, he said that, you said that, she said this, you work as a team, it doesn't matter what political party you're at, and get and sort this problem out, because it's going further. And I'd like to see these children get the help. I've always put children first, and as I've said, I can go back many years, I've helped children along the way, and I've seen them succeed in their careers. There've been some bad ones, we call them bad ones, but they turned out good. As long as you communicate with them, and it's a lot of communication, involve them. Let's involve these youths, let's see what they're taught, what they want. But at the end of the day, we're all in this together, and we're all in it to solve it together.
Okay.
We're voting for our resolution now.
The resolution is that we write to council.
Yes, by all means.
I was just trying to bring some realism into it. That's all. You can check it out as much as you want.
Yep. Everyone agreed?
Yeah.
Okay. Right, moving on. Planning matters. Okay, we've got two speakers for the planning applications. The first one is Landlocked Cobb Lane, Old Telegraph Lane, Kelbrook. I've got Debbie Richardson and Gary Wilson here.
Chair, perhaps we should explain for people watching, the people here, that we're not actually deciding these, just in case anyone's aware.
Yeah, we'll get to it. We've already said that. We cannot, at the area committee now, we cannot make a decision on planning applications. It has to go to full council because there is not a planning committee. So all we can do is pass comments and recommend what we think should happen.
Right.
So if you can start, I can give you 5 minutes. You want to say, please?
Yep, that's fine. So good evening. My name is Debbie Richardson and I live in Kelbrook. I'm here talking on behalf of the residents of Kelbrook who have a number of objections again to the plan submitted for this new application. But this new application is based on plans that have been previously submitted. And although this application proposes minor changes to the layout of the development, the key concern is that with regard to the protection of wildlife, nothing has changed. These plans have been rejected at least 4 times before because they've not taken into account the wildlife protection. Nothing has changed, and in fact, it's worse. Yes, we've obtained an ecology report that says 2 metres is adequate. That isn't adequate, since it's only the distance we have to stand apart. 2 metres is as far as I am from Paul. And 5 metres was correctly imposed by an inspectorate doing both of the previous appeals. Nothing has changed. In fact, plots 7 and 8 show separate garage buildings. These buildings will be 3 metres from the watercourse and therefore well within the 5 metre buffer zone required for building. The canopy of existing trees overhangs the boundaries and therefore it's clear that 2 metres is inadequate since any digging would impact the tree roots. By reinstating a 5 metre buffer zone, the gardens would again be too small for houses of this size. This was one of the reasons for rejecting the previous plans. Nothing has changed. A survey of bat roosts, which I know Gary's going to talk about, has been conducted at the wrong time of year and the bat activity was not observed. Bats require the full tree canopy which extends the area to 5 metres. This would seem a very good reason for retaining the 5 metre buffer. It's proposed also that the fencing at the end of the gardens should be post and rail. This isn't adequate to protect the buffer zone since these fences can be easily climbed and got over. The fencing should at least be stop fencing and there should be a covenant stating that gates cannot be installed to ensure there's no garden creep. There continue to be also concerns about surface drainage. I know in the planning report it states that they need to give us detailed plans because the current plan proposes a tank between Yellow Hall and the first house. A visible drainage system has been rejected, but it's unclear how the proposed SUD system will be maintained adequately and excess drainage into the stream managed to prevent the floods that we experience annually. Yorkshire Water have stated that surface water mustn't go into the sewage drains, but it's unclear that how this proposed solution will not cause more issues. The water from that stream goes into the Victorian drainage system in the village, so how does directing more water this way prevent an increase of water into the sewage system? The other thing that we've raised consistently is around concern during the development. The LCC Highways report has looked only at the site itself and not at the surrounding environment that will be impacted during the building phase. We feel really strongly that deliveries in large lorries should be restricted to between 9:15 and 3. This is for the practical reason that Waterloo Road is very difficult to travel along during school drop-off and pick-up times, because there's very limited parking and difficulty of getting a vehicle along the road, let alone a large lorry. These lorries would also have to travel through the village from Church Lane over the stone bridge near the church. We would like LCC to confirm that this bridge is strong enough to take the number of heavy lorries. To date, they've ignored our requests to do this and have made no mention of it in their report. So although the plans that have been submitted are an improvement on the previous plans, fundamentally nothing has changed from the previous occasions when this application's been refused. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. I just want to enlarge on a couple of those things that Debbie mentioned. In the report you have in front of you, the case officer under ecology says the ecology survey submitted with the previous outline permission recommended that a buffer of 5 metres be maintained, etc. He goes on to say that the buffer was only required because the potential impact on bats in the area had not been fully assessed. And that makes a presumption that it now has been fully assessed. The inspector who granted the application with conditions actually referenced the extended Phase 1 Habitat Survey produced by JWPC Limited. That's no longer part of this application because this new one has been commissioned. But the inspector relied upon the one that was there previously. And he stated, where it is identified that a buffer cannot be included, and he goes on a little bit, bat activity surveys to understand the level of use by foraging and commuting bats at the site should be carried out. This is not what the latest survey has done. It has merely repeated the observations that there are probably roosts in the wooded area and that it's suitable for bats to forage. It has not looked at the level of bat activity for foraging and commuting bats. The surveys which are required, and I'm quoting best practice, are dusk to dawn surveys, preferably 3 of them, on dry warm nights in July. There is little in the way of guidance on buffer zones for bats. The level of bat traffic, both foraging and commuting, is an essential piece of data before a sensible conclusion can be reached. However, there is a metric which is usually accepted for buffer zones around roosts. The buffer zone distance is described as 1.5 times the diameter of the tree canopy. That's probably why in the Phase 1 extended survey that was in the original application, it's 5 metres. The information is available in Landscape and Urban Design for Biodiversity by Kelly Gunnell and others, published in 2012. Last statement. I believe that is why the 5 metre buffer zone was set in the extended Phase 1 habitat survey. And I also believe that reducing the buffer zone to 2 metres without proper evidence may be contrary to the law, as it might A, obstruct access to bats resting or sheltering places, B, remove part of the commuting habitat, and most importantly C, change or remove foraging areas. When we're talking about foraging, we're not talking about them landing and eating grass, we're talking about them picking up insects on a strip at either side of the wooded area. The environmental report included in this application, in my opinion, is just an attempt to circumvent the inspector's conditions. We have no problem with the development as long as the development's done properly, lawfully, and in the right manner. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Gary. Paul, do you want to come in?
Well, to be perfectly honest, there's not a great lot I can add to that, because I think the statements from both Debbie and Gary make it absolutely clear that the key issue, if you just work through the reasoning that was in the report, they basically said that the main condition that led to the refusal of the last application had been met, but I think we've heard over the last 5 minutes quite clear it hasn't been met, hasn't even got close to it being met. The only thing I would add, but perhaps it's superfluous anyway, but I'll state it now, just that is the business about the construction method statement. There isn't one included in this. I know it's conditioned, but condition 15 to say it will be approved statement has to be done. But my worry is that the last time they submitted an application, they did have a construction method statement, but it was woeful. It was a cut and paste from the one that was refused in 2017. They hadn't improved it by last year, and it was refused. So I'm not confident that they will be able to come up with one that meets the standards required, considering the location that they're looking at and the means of traffic. The last one didn't even have a section 10, the routing on it. So even if it gets to the position of possibly approving this, although I would severely hope that it doesn't, I do think that other bit does need to be carefully looked at as part of the discussion. But other than that, I think they've pretty much covered it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor?
Thank you, Chairman. I hear very clearly what's been said by all the speakers so far. I agree that the changes that have been in this application do not satisfy the reasons for refusal the last time we considered an application for this plot of land. I want to speak about the process, Madam Chairman, because I very quickly flipped through the agenda papers for the council meeting next week. For people who are perhaps not aware, the situation at the moment is that last May the ruling group of the council passed a resolution saying we're going to take all the planning powers away from area committees, and currently we're in a hiatus where because there is no scheme of delegation in place, all the planning applications have to go to the full council. So that's the full council agenda. I don't think this includes any of the reports on planning, which just having a quick look, looks like we've got 3 pages of planning applications to do. It doesn't look as if this planning application is on next week's agenda for the Pendle Council. So it's not going to be looked at in any hurry. What is on the agenda for next week is a motion being put forward by myself to do the sensible thing and put planning back with area committees so that local councils that represent local areas,
Can we talk about this application?
Yes, I am talking about this application, Chairman, and I'd be grateful if you let me continue. The implication of things going to the centre is that you'll get all sorts of councillors who are not aware of the conditions in Kelbrook, do not appreciate what the problems are on Waterloo Road, do not appreciate the baggage, the backstory that comes with this application, do not appreciate the impact on wildlife, do not appreciate that the development as proposed is just trying to cram too much onto a plot of land that cannot sensibly sustain that level of development. And to that extent, the centralisation of the planning function is utterly flawed. And the sooner we can get back to a sensible process that puts real power in the hands of local residents and local councillors, the better. In this case, Madam Chairman, I would propose that this council objects on the basis that the development as proposed will not satisfy the reasons for refusal the last time round. And if the council are to consider this, then they should have a site visit in order to appreciate some of the issues that are in play in terms of this particular application. So I so move.
Okay.
You know, if I haven't looked at the agenda, but if it's not on there, it won't come up against him until the new year. By which time, the points that David has been making will have been resolved one way or the other. So I think the answer is, in my view, and this is a committee, not a council, in my view, this committee is fully supportive of what the residents have said. It is quite clear, as David has said, that they haven't met the reasons for refusal last time. And I'm getting a bit dizzy. We've had 2 houses on here, 9 houses, 7 houses, 17 houses, 10 houses. You know, it's a hell of a job, isn't it? So let's just cut to the chase.
Yeah.
Let's unanimously say we recommend refusal based on the fact that the last time that we refused it on the detail, that detail has still not been met. And that says all the messing about and going through the rigmarole of where we were.
It was a question really for councillors. Obviously, you know, the situation and the process may have been resolved, as Mike said, by the time this gets to any committee. But the question has been asked is, should we be in the situation we are in now, when this does reach the full council, are members of the public able to go and represent at that meeting in the way that they are here?
Not if it's like this at the moment, but it won't be.
No. Okay.
It won't be unless David and Tom decide not to turn up. It won't. It will definitely not be as it is now. So that's a fact.
Yeah. But it is definitely not on the agenda for the next full council anyway. Okay. So the proposal from this committee is that if it does go to full council, then we recommend that it is refused.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All those in favour?
For the reasons set out.
Yeah,
And no, Chairman, I put in the request site visit.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Have you got what you want? Yeah, okay. All right, well, thank you.
Cheers,
very
thank you.
much.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the planning application, change use of land at Morley, Salterforth. What's the start, David?
Chairman, I've been to the site and I'm familiar with Salterforth Drive and all the issues there are of access over the bridge by the anchor, etc., etc., etc. I think in terms of the former and use, the scrapyard use, to all intents and purposes, it retains that use, the established use. All that is nothing because the scrapyard had big wagons and lots of coming and going and all that sort of stuff. So to some extent we've got to put that to one side. There's a section in the report that talks about flooding and it says development will be inappropriate because part of the land floods. And when I read that, I gave out a hollow laugh because if you think about where floods in Salterforth, it's clearly at Lower Green Hill caravan site, and we were told in no uncertain terms that by a planning inspector that it didn't matter that it was sort of like 3 foot deep in water for many periods of the year, that drainage was not a problem. And yet you get up on the hillside and all of a sudden flooding is an issue, and I think I'm a bit baffled by that. So I question that one. And then it's recommended for refusal, and the requirements of, and they're called showmen, the requirements of a showman site seem to be dismissed sort of just like that. And I think that this is a unique situation, certainly one that we haven't faced before, and I'm not sure has been faced by Pendle in the past, across the whole of Pendle. And I would like more advice on that, because in the documentation submitted by the applicant, there is chapter and verse about the law in terms of showman sites and our obligations as planning authority in providing them. And the report that we've got does not really give us any satisfactory information as to the rights and wrongs of that. And I think, in the best sense of the term, we're ignorant of that aspect, and I think we need to know more about that. In summary, the application is recommended for refusal on the grounds of it's inappropriate, there's flooding, and then it comes to the question of whether it's a sustainable location. Now, I'm a bit not confused, but weighing up one thing and another here, because I understand the way that fairground operators essentially work, and for nine months of the year they're probably away. In this case, I think the leads go down to Devon and Cornwall early in the year, perhaps March, something like that, and then they work their way across the country. So for the most of the time, they're not going to be there. And again, I think we need to take all these things into account. So I think that we should ask for further information on this one. I think we need to know about the policies and the way in which the policies affect the provision of travel insurance sites. And I think we need to know about our obligations as a planning authority in that respect. And then I think we need to better understand how the applicant's operation would actually impact on the provision that they hope to make in Salterforth. Now, I've spoken to quite a few residents in the immediate vicinity of the application site, and for the most part, people are telling me that actually they're quite sympathetic to getting this use. They think that it's a positive thing in that they help to contain criminal activity by greater oversight and preventing the theft and things like that. So I don't think it's clear cut. I think there's a very great risk that people look at it and say, oh, it's a travel site, and all the prejudices that come to light when we use that sort of expression. And I think we need to be clear that it's a showman's travelling site, and that's pretty different So what I'd like to propose, Jen, is that we ask for further information about our obligations for applications such as this, and secondly, that we have a site visit so that we can understand and appreciate if they're talking about flooding, you know, how on earth are we going to be seeing flooding on the hillside? So that's what I would move.
Okay, who's seconding that?
I will second that. In terms of, when thinking about sustainability, I think if that's a reason for turning something like this down, you've got to ask then, are they expecting to use a more sustainable site for this kind of activity? And then, with the lack of land around Salterforth, if you think about alternative sites, you're then using a plot of land that size closer to the village in a more sustainable location, where you wouldn't then be able to use it for housing. So I think the idea that you should turn down under sustainability is wrong. So,
Okay, Councillor Rothwell.
just remember.
Yeah, can we go to the vote?
Yeah, sure. The recommendation is to refuse this.
The proposal I put on the table,
Oh, sorry, Councillor Whip's got a proposal that
we have a site visit,
that
we seek further information, defer it for further information.
It's been deferred, further information in the site visit.
yeah, okay, right, okay. Right, moving on. Item 6, area committee budget. We'll probably do a report on that next time. Just for information. Item 7, land at 24 Tilsley Grove.
Jen,
Yeah.
I thought there was a public right of way across here.
What?
This land is on to...
Oh, Tilsley Grove?
Yeah.
No, if you remember that strip of land, we took it out.
The main street, yeah.
The main street, we took out of planning.
Well, it was originally up for sale on the basis that they get 89 houses.
Yeah.
That was taken away, but
Isn't this end?
no, it's
Well,
the other end.
It's the other end. I think you're right. I think there is a footpath between the end of the land and where this site is.
Well,
If I remember right.
Yeah.
I think there is a
Jen,
footpath there.
you used to be able to walk from Tarty Grove onto the
Main
path
road.
alongside.
Yeah, well,
Sorry,
you still
road.
can.
Can you still do it? Because when I went, you couldn't. Yeah, it's not in the immediate past, it's a few months, well, probably last year.
Yeah, I'm
actually.
not sure.
Worth checking.
There were fencing there.
Well, my thoughts on this is that because we remove that piece of land out for housing, if we allow them to build a house on this corner street, that is going to set a precedent. So I'm not very happy about that. What do the rest of you think?
Can well, the land was sold for 6,400 with a covenant that they wanted to remove.
Yeah, they want to relax it.
And there's a mention that that will free up the council to seek a bounty, if you want to put it that way. But it doesn't say how much.
No.
There's no reference to actually the value that they would now seek based on the fact that if that had been sold in the first place as a small building, it wouldn't have gone for 6.5 grand, would it?
No, but what we're being asked here is do we want to relax the covenant for them to either build a house or a double garage? We ancillary accommodate.
Well, it depends. We need the rest of the information, and also I think the point that David's made is worth following up on as well.
Yeah.
But if the result is we get 20 grand, maybe that would be the deal. I don't know. But if it's 2 and 6, then you know it's not worth it.
No.
But that still goes back to your point about does it set a precedent? Well, planning would say it wouldn't, but
well, do you want to defer this for further information?
I think, Jen, the overage in other words, the increase in value
Yeah.
is an issue. I think if you look at what it would cost you to buy a building block, 20 grand is rather cheap. But I think the other issue is the footpath.
Yeah.
There's two issues.
So, if we defer this and we want more information, we want to know about that footpath that runs down the side, and also if they are going to receive a premium, how much would that be? Yeah?
And that would be, yeah, I think we need to know that.
Yeah. Before we make a decision.
Before you make any decision.
Yeah.
It is a recommendation that you're making to council policy and resources committee.
Yes.
It's not a decision as such.
Yeah. Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, the footpath and also anything else, I mean, they're all covered under different things. I mean, they would require planning permission to build any structure there. So, I mean, it's more a thing of does the covenant serve a purpose? And is that purpose still useful? So I think we just need to ask ourselves, you know, what is it doing for us now that we wouldn't want to happen if we moved it? And I think the value, obviously, you know, someone up the graph would probably, you know, get a surveyor into estimate the value and get different back from timber.
Can I just ask on this one, if this is to go to policy and resources, would it not, because we want to defer it kind of thing, would it not come back to us first before it went to policy? Or is it going to go to policy before it comes back to us?
Well, I can request that the information is brought back here before it goes to P&R. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, we can,
Yeah, is that okay?
I think we
Yeah.
need to do that.
Yeah, everybody agree? Well, okay. Right, item 8, environmental blight. Anybody got any issues on this one?
Chairman, I look forward to the West Coast Road Lorry Park being surfaced. I raised with Mr Walker previously about some pallets of principally West County Council bricks, which is mostly sand that is effectively unusable, which was removed from the books store and placed down there. The cutting back of the vegetation led to that being moved from where it was to the grass adjacent to the flood containers. And I thought, Mr Walker, you were going to make arrangements for its entire removal. I wonder whether that could happen, please.
So, yes, I was looking and we'll take them right after our conversation. Apologies.
Okay. Alright, moving on then, item 9 for discussion. Railway Road with Essex Street.
Thank you, Chairman. We asked on that one, given that the railings have only been renewed on the evening of the last area committee, just after the meeting had finished, Panther Logistics truck managed to take the railings out again, and we've got the horrible yellow plastic barriers in place, which totally obstruct the pavement, and pedestrians can get over by walking over the frontage of the Chinese takeaway, but anybody in a wheelchair or pushing a pram can't get round. So what I'd like to propose then is that we request the County Council to look at options for to obviate this problem altogether. I mean, the most expensive option would be a new access to Silent Night off Kelbrook Road, going down by the high school and then coming in through the lorry park. So that's option number 1. Option number 2 would be for a scheme to actually increase that radius, to buy some land off the Chinese takeaway and to make the radius adequate for the vehicles that are using it. option 3 might be to make the protection more robust. So there's various options that the County Council could look at, and from this committee I think we'd like to ask that all these possibilities are explored, and that in the meantime they once again get rid of the plastic barriers and you know, have something decent in place that allows pedestrians to get past.
Okay.
And Jennifer's going to say, oh, we couldn't do it this week.
Don't go down that road with Highways Department and these barriers. Right, first and foremost, Raynor Road Junction. I've been on to them as well as the one at Skipton Road roundabout. I've been on to them because how on earth can you get a wheelchair round where St Andrews is, that side? If you go in the Uffenbaum, look on the right hand side where the railing's all been damaged, you can't get a wheelchair around there. I've had somebody out over a month ago, one of the highways officers, to have a look at this, because it's every time the wagons from Silent Night. You can't just blame Silent Night, there might be another wagon from somewhere else. Now, I did send them a video of the wagon knocking that down. Secondly, he came out, when he came out, he looked at it, he said, we're going to have a look at another different design on this. Now, today I have been assured by one of the officers at LCC, luckily we've got rid of the cabinet member that was in charge of our highways, thank goodness, we might see some more improvement. Now, it's taken 12 months for them to come out and sort these at Gisborne Road, and maybe 6 months over here. So hopefully, I'm not holding my breath on any of this, because it says the 30th of November, well that's tomorrow, they're supposed to be starting work on the railings. I'd like to see them railings start and be replaced, because there isn't just Raynor Road, it's down at Gisborne Road School, the other side has to be replaced as well. So I do blame a lot on LCC Highways Department for not communicating with their officers properly, because for a start off, I've just had this email sent back to me saying that it was only a fortnight ago that side where the plastic safety rails was damaged. But as I've said, it is being so, I've done my darndest, I've been on the phone, emails, I've kept every email you can think of. But it's the incompetence of LCC Highways that are not doing the job right.
Alright, so proposal is that we write to LCC and ask for the 3 proposals to be...
Chairman, sorry, forgive me, there was a fourth option, and it might be a combination of different things, but the further option was for the stop lines to be set back in order to give articulated vehicles a bigger swing so that they could get round.
Yeah. Okay. Alright, item 10. Sorry.
If I could be so bold to add a 5th option to that, there could be a modal filter installed on Raynor Road, which then forces heavy traffic to go down Valley Road, to either get onto the main road at West Craven, which avoids the whole junction entirely.
Do you not think, with all these options, that it might be better to ask County Highways to come out and have that meeting with you?
Perhaps, we haven't had much luck in the past.
Well, no, well, you know, and then you can discuss it all.
Madam Chairman, I request that we ask the new cabinet member to come out and do and look at all these 5 options.
Who is it?
Swatter. Is it Swatter?
Swatter.
No, not some guy.
No, you won't.
Yes,
Let's request that he comes out, and also the...
And meet with the councillors
and
and
also Phil Linnell, the head of the department as well.
Okie dokie. Alright, let's move on. Item 10, outstanding items. I don't think there's an update for the community centre, is there?
Are we just noting all of these?
Yeah, shall we just note them all? Okay? Alright, close the meeting. Thank you all very much. And may I also, this is our last meeting, and a very, very Christmas.